Signing up takes one click. Watch the counter. Now watch what happens when you try to leave. Researchers actually measured this on real news and media subscription sites. Canceling a Bloomberg subscription takes 10 clicks. On average, it took over 60% more clicks to cancel than it did to sign up in the first place. This isn't a bug. Amazon's own employees had a name for their version of this. They called it the Iliad flow, after the 10-year siege of Troy, because getting a customer out was supposed to take that long too. It cost them $2.5 billion, the largest civil penalty ever obtained in a case involving an FTC rule violation, plus the second largest consumer refund fund in the agency's history, over a button that was designed not to work. Before we get into how this actually works, go check your bank statement right now. I'll wait. I promise you'll find at least one you forgot you were paying for.
This didn't start with a website. It started with a record club. Columbia House built an entire business on one idea. If you didn't say no, that counted as saying yes. Sign up for a promotional deal, and every month after, a new record would ship, and you'd be billed unless you actively sent back a card saying you didn't want it. The government actually saw this exact tactic decades earlier. In 1973, the FTC created what's still called the negative option rule, written specifically because mail-order clubs like this one were burying people in unwanted shipments. It required clear disclosure and an easy way to say no, but it only covered mail and telephone orders. Nobody had written a version for what happens on a screen. It worked for decades anyway. Then, in August of 2015, Columbia House filed for bankruptcy, the quiet end of the mail-order version of this idea. But the idea didn't die. It just moved online. In 2010, Congress passed a law, ROSCA, specifically to stop the same trick from happening on the internet. Clear disclosure, real consent, and an easy way to stop the charges. Software companies noticed something else entirely. Around 2012, Adobe made a quiet but massive shift away from selling software once toward renting it forever. And in 2016, Apple opened subscriptions to every app category that existed, then restructured how it paid developers. 70% in year one, rising to 85%, but only if a customer stayed subscribed for a full year. For the first time, the business model itself was built to reward one thing above all else: keeping you. By 2025, that shift had turned into a $536 billion global subscription economy, projected to approach $900 billion in 2026. By 2019, there was a name for how that felt from the other side: subscription fatigue. Too many services, too many logins, too many things quietly renewing in the background. It never really went away. By 2026, the average American adult was spending $111 a month on subscriptions, over $1,300 a year, and wasting about $21 of that every single month on services they'd already forgotten they had.
In 2019, researchers at Princeton didn't ask companies how their websites worked. They just crawled 11,000 of them and counted. They found nearly 2,000 dark patterns, deliberately manipulative design choices on over 1,000 of those sites. And they found something stranger: 22 separate companies that exist purely to sell dark patterns as a service to other businesses. The man who coined the term dark patterns, a UX designer named Harry Brignall, had a simple test for whether something qualified. Would the user thank you for this design if they understood exactly what it was doing? If yes, it's a nudge. If no, it's a dark pattern. 5 of these patterns show up again and again. Roach Motel, easy to get in, deliberately hard to get out, the exact shape of what you just watched happen on that phone screen. Confirm shaming, guilt language designed to make declining feel bad, like an opt-out button that reads something closer to, "No thanks, I like paying more." Forced continuity, a free trial that quietly converts into a paid subscription the moment you forget about it. Hidden costs, a real fee that only appears once you're already committed. In 2024, HelloFresh paid $7.5 million to settle a California lawsuit over exactly this. And pre-selection, an add-on box that's already checked for you, so staying enrolled takes 0 effort and opting out takes work. Here's the part that should actually worry you. In 2021, researchers tested whether knowing about these tricks made people immune to them. It didn't. People who could correctly identify a dark pattern in front of them were still influenced by it. That's because this isn't really a knowledge problem. A lot of these designs lean on something behavioral economists call the sunk cost fallacy. Once you've already invested time filling out a form, entering a card number, or sitting through 3 "Are you sure" screens, walking away starts to feel like a loss, even when finishing actually costs you more. Knowing the trick exists doesn't turn off that feeling. Nir Eyal knows more about this than almost anyone alive. He wrote the book, literally, it's called Hooked, on how to design habit-forming products. And he still got trapped. He tried to cancel his New York Times subscription. Signing up had taken him seconds. Canceling took multiple screens, a mandatory phone call or a chat window, and once he finally got a human, several rounds of an agent trying to talk him out of it. He called it, in his own words, a textbook roach motel.
So back to Amazon. In June of 2023, the FTC filed a federal complaint alleging Amazon used exactly these tactics to trap people in Prime, making it hard to find the option to skip the subscription and burying the real cancel button behind screen after screen of "Are you sure?" In September 2025, ahead of trial, the FTC revealed something Amazon had never said publicly. Internally, employees called the unresolved problem an unspoken cancer. Millions of people were enrolling in Prime by accident, and the company knew it. Once the trial actually started, specific details came out. Amazon employees described a repeating internal cycle. Test a clearer, more honest version of the sign-up or cancellation page, watch enrollment numbers drop, then roll the change back. FTC attorneys had a name for it: stop, drop, and roll. The key witness was a former Amazon user experience researcher, Reed Nelson, who spent a decade inside the company. His own messages, shown to the jury, said an honestly disclosed version of the Prime page would make the company's actual business goals, his words, exceedingly challenging. Weeks earlier, the judge overseeing the case had formally admonished Amazon for withholding tens of thousands of internal documents, calling it tantamount to bad faith, and had already ruled that 2 named Amazon executives could be held personally liable if the jury sided with the FTC. Trial started in Seattle. 3 days in, Amazon settled. $2.5 billion, $1 billion in penalties, $1.5 billion set aside to refund roughly 35 million customers, up to $51 each. Amazon now has to do the things it apparently couldn't figure out how to do before: a clear button to decline Prime, full disclosure before it takes your billing information, and a cancellation path through the same channel you'd use to sign up. And Amazon isn't alone. Adobe hit a fee worth half your remaining payments behind a hover icon. The company settled with the Department of Justice for $150 million in March of 2026. LA Fitness allegedly made people cancel in person or by mail, nothing online, nothing over the phone. Match Group's own internal memo called its cancellation flow, in writing, hard to find, tedious, and confusing. The company later paid $14 million to settle the case. Here's the twist nobody expected. The one federal rule, written specifically to fix all of this, click to cancel, got killed 6 days before it was supposed to take effect. Not because a judge thought it was wrong, because the FTC skipped a paperwork step.
You've probably heard the theory that clearing your cookies changes the price you're shown. For flights, specifically, that one's mostly folklore. Tested repeatedly, never substantiated. But the underlying idea isn't a myth at all. Researchers found that pricing based on someone's actual browsing history increases a company's profits by over 14% and can mean some customers pay nearly double what others pay for the exact same thing. The FTC has been formally investigating this since 2024. So is click to cancel dead? Not exactly. The FTC restarted the process in March of 2026. Legal analysts expect whatever comes next to look almost identical to the version that got struck down, just with the paperwork done correctly this time. They won't expect a final rule before late 2026, more likely 2027. In the meantime, states and other countries aren't waiting for Washington. California's own automatic renewal law was already on the books before any of this, which is exactly how regulators caught HelloFresh. Colorado passed its own Online Cancellation Act, in effect now and expanding to cover business subscriptions in February of 2026. And the European Union didn't wait for a single lawsuit at all. Since February of 2024, its Digital Services Act bans manipulative subscription design outright, with fines that can reach 6% of a company's global revenue. So what can you actually do right now? 4 things. Pull up your bank or card statement and scan every recurring charge. Don't trust your memory, trust the statement. If a company forces you to call to cancel, say out loud on that call that you're invoking your state's automatic renewal law. It's often enough to end the runaround immediately. For any new free trial, set a reminder 2 days before it ends, not the day it ends. Cancellation queues get long right before renewal dates for a reason. And if you want to skip all of that entirely, several banks now offer free virtual card numbers built for exactly this. Capital One's Eno and Privacy.com both let you generate a card for a single trial and shut it off automatically, so a company literally cannot charge you even if their cancellation page is designed to make you fail. If you had Prime between 2019 and 2025, you may be owed money. The claim window closes July 27, 2026. There's a city that just did something the federal government couldn't finish. Next time, we go there.